So I'd say one very quick lesson to learn when you're collaborating, especially whether it's a joint venture or whatever it is to ensure that the counterpart, the other party that you are getting involved with has the adequate level of expertise in the area before you go into it. So that's on one hand. Another example is outsourcing. This one I think we're all familiar with. Most businesses will focus on what they do best and then outsource the parts that they are either not as skilled at or that the costs just don't make sense to them. So Kawai, we do this a lot. Our business is interfacing with manufacturers. We're basically project managers. And so the actual shipping side of the business, the forwarding and the shipping side, we outsource to a couple of companies that we've dealt with now for about 10 years. And they take the heavy lifting, as it were, in those areas. For me, this is a really powerful form of business collaboration, and it has worked extremely well for us. And I'd say in one of the cases, one of the companies is a very well-known Nigerian company, and we now account for about 25% of their business. The other, we're entirely their business. They do have other clients, but we are the majority of their business. And that's because they focus on the forwarding and the shipping and the clearing extremely well, while we focus on the project management, client origination, deal sourcing. And that relationship it's worked extremely well for us. Another example of collaboration, and this is one we're doing right now actually, is subcontracting. So this typically is an area where the business is good at either marketing or sales, and they get a business, but the business actually does not do any of the work required to satisfy the business. In this case, you will enter a legal agreement, which is a subcontractor agreement, and you will then assign the responsibilities under your contract with your client to the subcontractor. And there's quite a large project we're involved with right now in that space. It's on the technology side of the business, and the subcontractor, they have the expertise, they have the experience. We leverage our ability to generate this business, and then they will satisfy the business. Typically with a subcontractor agreement, it's not really a profit share, which is what you get in a joint venture, where both parties are putting something in and then you share what you get out. With a subcontractor agreement, it will typically be percentage based. So, you're getting in, I don't know, let's say 100 million naira, then the subcontractor is agreed, I don't know, a percentage, 50%, 60%, depending on what your agreement states. And of course, depending on what their costs are, you will negotiate all these things. Then there are other businesses which are less formal. So I'll say the formal types of collaborations are the ones I've already talked about: joint venture agreements, outsourcing, and your subcontractor agreements. The other types I would focus on briefly are the less formal types. One is a simple profit share. Profit shares, typically, I would not call them businesses. I would call them deal-based or transaction-based. So these typically tend to be one-offs, where you are entering a space, there's an opportunity, you're trying to capture that opportunity, you have a partner, and you both go in and you have a very clear profit share. Which it tends to work well, especially in Nigeria. You will find these are the kinds of deals that you will typically see in Nigeria. But again, I will stress that these are less formal types of businesses. The last type I will talk about, which for us is the most important, is I would just have to call it just a collaboration. And this is, in our case, is due to the time that we've been together. So our biggest client is a large infrastructure company in Nigeria, and we've been working together for 10 years. And what's happened in our case over that period is we are now so enmeshed in their operations, and they're so enmeshed in our operations that it's hard to tell where the client stops and we begin. And this has two advantages. It also has some downsides, but I'll speak briefly to the advantages. The advantages are, of course, that you have a deeper insight into your clients' business, how they do business, what their pressure points are, what their pain points are, what the positives are, what the negatives are, and that X-ray vision into the business, as it were, gives us certain advantages which it's hard for competitors to compete with. The downsides of that, of course, is that you are fully integrated into the business, which means anything that affects them automatically affects you. But usually, because you have that X-ray vision, you should be able to stay one step ahead of problems and also help solve problems. One of the interesting things I've noticed in this style of long-term collaboration is that there are things we learned from our client very early on. I'd probably say 8-9 years ago. And because over time, companies tend to change staff and change employees and personnel, their newer personnel, I would now say about maybe 5 years ago, that came onto the client side, were not familiar with processes. So we found ourselves in a situation where we were teaching the clients processes about their business, which we had originally learned from them. And so it's a very nice cycle where you learn things from the client, and then you become really, really good at those things. And then down the line, you end up teaching the client those things which you originally learned from them. And that has it's been a very rewarding experience in our case. And I think for now I'll stop there, and we'll talk a bit more as the panel goes on. Back over to you, Tina.
Yeah, thank you for this insight. Can you hear me, please? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
We can hear you. We can hear you now.
All right. Thank you. So thank you, Mr. Kimbo, for these experiences you have shared with us. The different kinds of collaboration, which have almost touched almost all of them from almost all of them, both formal and informal at different levels. Like what you said, there are different forms of collaboration or partnership, both informal and formal. And thank you for this, for sharing this experience. And for me, the takeout is that whatever form of collaboration it is, there is need to understand who you are partnering with and the competence of that person. That will determine if that partnership is really going to work or not. Thank you so much. To our third panelist, Izu Uwama. Just a quick one, please. We are running out of time. We want you to share from your experience or that of your clients. We want you to help us understand if in any way this collaboration has helped the company to achieve a competitive advantage in their businesses. So this collaboration and partnership we are talking about, from your experience, has it helped in any way for your client or your business to achieve a competitive advantage? Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. The obvious answer would be yes. It has. Collaboration, I would just think, is a synonym for strategic partnerships, right? To go fast, to go alone, to go far, we go together, right? I've been a part of so many businesses, both as either a co-founder, as a client, as a executive coach, and sometimes just as a board member of those businesses. I think the most popular one that I've been a part of is iFitness. We're behind the brand for iFitness. It's probably one of the biggest or the fastest rising fitness brand in Nigeria. And I sit on the board of a company that is expanding with them. So in less than 4 years, you guys have done over 18 gyms, right? So I'm just very practical with this. And then someone walks into the room and she wants to run like a smoothie bar, right? It's quite a very saturated market. But then I was going to take up, and I took a large percentage of that business as against just doing consulting and charging a fee, because I knew behind it, if I came on board, I could help them expand really fast, because on one end, I have like iFitness behind me, and it's quite simple. Who are people that take smoothies, salads, parfaits, juices, a lot more and more frequently? The same guys you find in the gym, right? Because they're all trying to lose weight or look fresh, look fit, and it's not just losing weight that happens. So that's a classic collaboration. As a matter of fact, it was a very strategic collaboration. It's even less than a 6 month collaboration. They're already in their 5th store, right? And almost 50 staff, right? It's a very practical example of that. As a matter of fact, I've gone ahead to tie another brand. So like I said, I sit on a lot of boards, and I'll explain why I got into that place where I sit on a lot of boards. People always say, oh, how old are you? How come you have a group of companies and all that? But once again, I've always known at a very young age that collaboration and strategic partnership is everything. So once again, I have a client who I also sit on the board. It's called New Age. I don't know if you know the charger. They do car banks, chargers, the Don Jazzy's on all of the chargers and big culture. Once again, I'm ready to take up an equity or a partnership on that, because on the other end, they have a lot of earpiece, sound cancellation devices. Once again, who are people that use earpiece a lot and headphones a lot? People who go to the gym, once again, right? So it's easy for me to take that equity and go to my second client who I also have some relationship or some type of partnership and say, oh, you know what, guys, I can get you to have a stand, like an outlet in 18 different brands. And we throw back to years ago, I did a lot of work with slots. I had done that practically well with Same New Age with slot outlets. I mean, you sell chargers, you sell phones, it just makes sense for you to have the space in those brands. So, and I got that from like the primitive, I'm Igbo by design, and anybody, just on a lighter note, that is not stereotype. 8 out of 10 hawkers you see in Lagos traffic are Igbo. I don't know if anybody knows that by data, right? We actually did the research on that. In fact, 8 out of 10 come from the same village in one state, Ebonyi State, actually. So I learned pretty well just hanging around like primitive people, people who are grassroots, and see very informal partnership that the guy who's selling gala would have with the guy who's selling La Casera. You know, in traffic, you buy gala, the La Casera guy jumps next to you, you know, and that's very strategic partnership for how, you know, you see these abokis in the middle of, outside of a nightclub, because you know that people who drink will most likely smoke, you know, and it's as primitive as that is. If you move to the other flip side of it, to the sophistication of maybe powerful brands. I mean, every Ford car comes with a Sony CD player, right? The same way, I think every Range Rover comes with Meridian, right? You buy a brand new Rolls Royce, it comes with complimentary Rolex, right? That's strategic partnership. It helps Rolex sell more units, because whoever can buy a Rolex whoever can buy a Rolls Royce can afford a Rolex. I think Bentley has the same collaboration with Bentley. And it's such an interesting collaboration because they both sound alike. Bentley, Breitling, right? The wristwatch, right? So they're all about the collaboration, and I'm a huge fan of that. A wise man once told me in my early 20s, and it changed my life. I started my business at 22. And he told me something that there are 3 categories of people who make less than 1 million a month, right? 98% of Nigerians make less than 1 million a month. You might actually be surprised, 98%. It's only less than 2% of Nigerians that have 500K in their account. And he told me that the majority of people that make 1 million naira a month, so he told me there are 3 categories. The first category of people that make 1 million a month, and those guys are the ones that rely so much on hard work, right? And it says there are 3 categories. First is hard work. Second category is guys that make above 1 million to 10 million a month. I'm sure we don't know a lot of people in current Nigeria that make between 1 to 10 million every month. But say those people make their money from smart work, right? The 98% are the ones that stand in front of Oshodi by 4 a.m. trying to get to work by 8, and then they're back to that same bus stop by 8, trying to get to work by 10, trying to get home by 10 p.m. Now, and it says your first 1 million will come from hard work, your first 10 million will come from smart work. For your first 100 million naira a month, people who make that is never hard working. In fact, they're probably the laziest people. That's why in 3rd Mainland Bridge traffic, rarely by between 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. do you see Range Rovers in traffic. So you wonder why they are not in traffic, because they don't get up that early to go to work by 9 a.m. You don't see a Rolls Royce in traffic most of the time. Have you thought about it? You don't see a Ferrari in traffic. You want to see Ferraris during the night. But he told me something really powerful. He said, you see all those guys? You know the keyword? I said, no. He said the first guy, the keyword was hard work. The second guy is smart work. The third one is collaboration and strategic partnership. And that struck me so much. There's this company called Swarovski, right? I've tried to do work with them at some point. I think they're the world's largest diamond producers, right? This guy jumps next to the Beat by Dre, who apparently even has a partnership with Apple, right? Most Apple MacBook come with Beat by Dre speakers, but you see how you can have nested partnership in partnership, right? These guys take the Beat by Dre headphones and they make a special edition with diamonds. I'm sure they've sold more diamonds from Beats by Dre. I know DJ Copy has one of those, right? And just so many all around us are strategic partnership is the key word. So both locally, both internationally, and as myself, I've done a whole lot of partnerships. And I think that that's usually the best way. For anybody who's thinking how to get into those partnerships, it's basically process flow. Look at the consumer behavior of what you're selling. Where do they come from before they come to you? And go step back to where they come from and build a partnership with where they come from, right? Where do the guy that sells, let me give an example, let me bring to an example, the guy that has a small kiosk, right, that opens on a Sunday to sell small chops. Where do people come from before they stop to buy small chops, right? It's almost like a Nigerian thing. After church, is the church. So why don't you do backward integrate to have a branch in front of a major church, right? So it's always, where do you come from? Where do you go to? I'll let you back to the example of the casket guy. You sell caskets, you sell coffins. Where do people come from before they come to caskets? They go to the morgue, they go to the mortuary. So why don't you take your flyers and drop them there, or even go to the morgue and build a strategic partnership to say, look, I'm going to have an outlet in front of you. So after people cry, right, they still need to bury their people, right? So it's all over the place. It's so much partnership. You watch football, you see a UEFA, UEFA is on now, I think. And what do you see? You see Heineken ads. Boys drink beer while they watch football. Right. So once again, where do people who drink beer, what do they do before they drink beer, or why they drink beer? After they drink beer, they watch football. So you partner with them, right? So that's pretty much how the industry works, and everybody understand that. None of us is as smart as all of us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Wow. So
thank you, Izu.
Just to add to the fact that collaboration, business partnership works. Whatever level your business is, it works. Yes. Thank you for this insight. Quickly, we are going to go back to Arosa. Just to find out, how do you choose this partnership? When you want to collaborate, how do you go about choosing it? And what advice will you give in the best fit or the best kind of collaboration or partnership, especially in our environment?
Okay, thank you. And thanks to my co-panelists for those examples. In choosing, just like Izu mentioned, again, just mapping your process. I would say that from here on, for anybody who's here and having those conversations, particularly like the introduction we had about us being at the end of year, people are, well, closing deals, closing business, preparing for next year. Intentionality is what I would like to leave anybody with in choosing a best fit. Intentionality, that people should, in trying to close what I like to call the knowing doing gap. So you are hearing all of this. You just need to sit down, and as you consider next year and how to go bigger, faster and well, mapping your process, you should definitely intentionally ask yourself, how do I get another 10 to 30% growth, customer growth, revenue growth through collaboration? And immediately you have set that target, it's easier to walk back in a practical way. Because if you are not intentional, it can all sound like very good ideas, or you just add it to your to-do list. It's that intentionality that helps you to say, okay, I'm mapping my process, number one. That helps you to say, I want to then look out for people with, so you need to explore the complementarity model, and of course the dissimilarity model. So a lot of the things some of us are shared had some do around the complementarity model. Who else is in the ecosystem where my product or my service is, that I can maybe embed myself into it? Okay, so that shared vision, that complementarity is very helpful. Of course, you could also use the dissimilarity model that just simply says, look, who is in a space that I or people in my ecosystem are not even within, and I want to be able to introduce, because it gives you another room, all right, in doing so. Don't forget, I would also like to add that start somewhere, because I keep talking about the fears people have. Start somewhere. There are all sorts of examples, from loose partnerships to more permanent versions of it, to taking equity or even joint venture type of programs. Just work with intentionality. I want to grow my business next year I want to grow additional business from collaboration. So how do I go on about it? Immediately you have that clear purpose mapped out for you. You then begin to look at the people in your ecosystem. Are you in fashion, but you are just in a space there, and then you want to do backward integration or forward integration, maybe to solidify, say, your supply chain, for example, or you want to, like some of the work Adiom has done, is to look for global partners who we can use to leverage our offerings, as example. So that's something you want to look at. You definitely want to look out for how you can leverage skill or industry or experience, because you have to appreciate that collaboration shouldn't necessarily be costing you more money, or else you can do it other ways. It shouldn't be costing you more money. So you want to ask yourself, who has skill I can leverage on? Who has technology I can leverage on? Who is in an industry, who has industry access, okay, that I can leverage on? Who has clientele or customer access that I can leverage on? Or who has experience that I can ride onto something? So those are some of the things I would like to leave people for. Of course, in doing this, we have to consider, look, qualities you bring to collaboration. Certainly open-mindedness is very important. Trust and transparency. You heard Tina talk about mutuality, trust and transparency. Lots of communication would so much help. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Unfortunately, we don't really have so much time, but we appreciate the wealth of experience and the life examples all our panelists are giving us. So I'm going to also go back to Akimbo, and I'm going to join two questions together. The first one will be that what are the three most important criteria that you will look out for when seeking or accepting a collaboration offer? So what are the three most important criteria we'll be looking out for? And the second question will be, as a founder, how are you able to overcome the general Nigerian perception that collaboration is more a loss of owner's equity and control over and above any value that it can provide?
Okay.
Over to you, Akimbo.
So the first question, I'll say the three most important criteria to look out for when deciding to collaborate. First of all, and the most important, I think, is this an industry or business that I understand? And especially from personal experience, like the story I told you about the agro-export thing we tried 3 or 4 years ago, it's the question you have to first ask yourself. Do you understand the business? Because if you don't understand the business, it means you're literally giving over all responsibility, everything to the collaboration party. And even if it's not something that's your core business, you need to have an adequate understanding of the business. Everyone has heard of Warren Buffett, I'm sure. And he's made this point several years ago, and it's been repeated many times since. He does not invest in businesses he does not understand. Now, that is not saying that it's not a good business, but he's making the point that if he doesn't understand it, then he cannot be an accurate judge as to whether or not the business is going well or not going well, whether you're achieving your objectives or your goals. So only collaborate with only collaborate in businesses that you understand. That's number one. The second question to ask yourself or your team is, can myself or my company or my partner's company add value? If you're not bringing any value to the table, then why are you collaborating? That one is just very simple. There must be something you're both bringing to the table. And then the last point is more reflective, is how can this collaboration harm or negatively impact myself or my brand? And I think this is a question most people don't ask themselves. And while most of the times it could be fine, it's the times when it does go wrong, it can have drastic consequences. So you collaborate with a company, and yes, the business might go well, but because of how you've collaborated or who you've chosen to partner with, there are negative brand impacts on you. This might be, so to give our example, the way we tend to do business, there is a high degree of transparency, there's a high degree of finding out what the client's needs are. And so if we collaborate and the other party that's dealing with that client is not behaving in the same manner, it negatively impacts your brand, because at the end of the day, in that scenario, in that fictional scenario, the client just sees you, even though you are not the ultimate service provider. This can be very important, especially in subcontract agreements, where you are not necessarily the one carrying out the work, but you're the one whose name is at risk. So I'd say those are the three things, the three criteria to look out for. Is it an industry I understand? Can I or my partner add value? And how can this negatively harm or affect my brand? Those are three things to look out for. If you can just repeat the second question again, very quickly. Tina, can you just repeat the second question again? Yeah.
Okay, so the second question is that as a founder, how were you able to overcome the general Nigerian perception that collaboration is more a loss of owner's equity and control over and above any value that it can provide?
Well, I think that one is the small fish, big pond answer, very, very simply. And we have to look at generations. Historically, in the older generation, I'd say up until about 15-ish years ago, there was this emphasis on control with Nigerian businesses. And that was because we were in a more a more high risk environment. It was mostly military rule, and laws and processes weren't as robust as they are now. We still have a long way to go.
I think it's frozen.
Yeah. Can you please change your network if you can hear us? All right, so let's jump to why he tried to fix the network issue. Let's go to Izu. So we have seen cases where two brands in different industries have achieved successful collaboration. And can you help us discuss some of the insights and impact of such collaborations? And also, as you're looking at it, I know you have mentioned some of the ways you can pick your partner. If you have other things to add to it, how do we choose or advise our clients on some of the best fit for collaboration? Okay, Mr. Akib, are you back?
Yeah, sorry, I dropped off very quickly. I was at the end of my point, so I'll just finish.
Just like just a round off.
Yeah, Nigeria. So the collaboration here is the internet. So my point very quickly was you can choose to play in a small pond, or the alternative is today, especially with technology where it scales across business industries very quickly, is it makes more sense often now to take a small slice of the much bigger market. And you're seeing this a lot. Everyone's heard of Flutterwave and Paystack and companies like that in the fintech space. But in the non-fintech space, there's so many. There's Tolaram with the Indomie noodles. There's Indorama. There's so many companies now that what they've decided to do is just have a much wider market and have a much smaller share of that market. as opposed to having everything of a tiny market. So to summarize, I think it makes more sense to trust more and try and expand your market size. And you can do this by collaborating. Two is better than one. We know that.